Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, fellow Africans, fellow citizens of this planet. This is Ezra Nuguse, bringing you our weekly session, 21st Education in the 21st Century. That's what we have today. And today is the 6th of July, 2022. And we are here today to talk about very important topic: the cost and the cost of no education. Cost of no education. What does it cost us? What does it take away from us? Welcome to the Swahili Nation One Africa platform. The segment today is education in the 21st century, and the specific topic of the day is the cost of no education. The cost of no education. So I welcome our audience from around the continent and around the world. Welcome. And this is Ezra Nuguse that will be doing the program today for our weekly session on education and in general, and specifically today's education topic is the cost of no educations. I will be opening up the show to audience who would like to come and join in a few minutes. And before I do that, I would like to take a moment to say my condolences to all those who are losing their life, who are being slaughtered and massacred on the basis of their identity in Ethiopia, and then those who are losing their life and their livelihood on the basis of the resources that they are endowed by God in the Congo and Mali and Burkina Faso and Niger. I take this moment to also recognize those people who are losing their life because they have sought to pursue their God-given right for respect and dignity in Sudan, and those who are losing their life and their livelihood in Somalia because they are either not supporting terrorists or they live in an area that is attractive for multinational corporations who are seeking to exploit and turn their land into profit. So this is me taking a moment to recognize the pain and the suffering and the cost that is incurred in life, livelihood that is incurred across Africa and across the world. So please, I also ask you to, keep this poor and poor people that are being taken advantage of, that are being slaughtered, that are being evicted from their homes, that are being made homeless through the actions or the lack of actions of leaders in their country, in their community, in their continent, and the world. I take this moment as well to highlight some of the challenges some of our fellow people, our brothers and sisters that are in the Horn of Africa, that are at the mercy of nature, with extensive droughts that affecting millions and millions of families across the Horn of Africa. I also take this moment to recognize and really also send out my good wishes and good thoughts and prayer for those suffering from floods and natural disaster, particularly in Ghana. So if you've heard the news recently, so there's so many people to think about, there's so many people to worry about, there's so many people to pray for, and to really put our heart and mind so that their life is better off, and their life and livelihood are not at the mercy of human and non-human actions. So I ask my audience here to really think about those people that are not fortunate enough to defend for themselves, to stand up for themselves, to support themselves, to work for themselves, to overcome challenges that are human-made challenges and not naturally made challenges. So I ask you to really think and pray for them, and and send your condolences, and send your prayers, send your good wishes for all these people that are across the continent that have been affected by all sort of challenges, all sort of problems. Marriott, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you. The only, thank you. Thank you for joining. Tasfai, Mahdi, thank you for joining. Appreciate you. So everyone who's here, thank you, and I appreciate you. I appreciate your presence. I appreciate the attendance, and I appreciate your participation in our platform. Swahili Nation Network is dedicated to bringing a vision of Africa that is in peace, that is governed by love and unity. Okay, so that is our driving force. That is our defend the image, bring back the heritage of Africa, decolonize the mind through authentic knowledge, and create bridge for oneness and a peaceful Africa. So Swahili Nation is committed to this mission, is committed to this vision, one Africa of solidarity in peace and love. So a united Africa and peace and love is where we want to see Africa moving forward. So that's where we are. And so let's get with the show. I mean, before we get to the show, I take this moment to ask God to be in our midst, in our presence, to ask God to guide our thoughts and our ideas and our conversations. I ask God to support us and everyone that is seeking for a better Africa. And that is my prayer today. And so that my conversation here, our conversation here today, is not just a human effort, but is also a spiritual and God's work. That's to put it in simply. So thank you so much for joining me. A few of you who have joined us, thank you. Please like, share, and ask your friends and family to join you and join us here. Okay. So, the topic of the day: the cost of no education. I think it's a very it's a simple topic that can easily be answered by saying that or that can be kind of like buttressed by pointing to the fact that the absence of education, the absence of any education, has a massive cost to our community and to our society. And so today, what I would like to do, and what I would like to spend today on, is try to provide opportunity to inform the audience on the fallacies of ignorance, on the fallacies of ignorance. And I would like to dedicate the time today to give insight on the value of informed discourse and informed dialogue. Informed discourse. So like a discourse that is grounded on information and knowledge and truth. And I would like to spend a little bit of my time today highlighting the consequence of coexistence devoid of educations. The consequence of coexistence devoid of educations. I would also like to take time to focus our discussions and our time here on the view of the conditions, to provide a view of the conditions of uninformed and uneducated and unaware populations and populace, and what it is. So all of these things encapsulates what I've tried to do today to discuss on the lack of education. So there will be opportunities to look at cases and case and points to really kind of like strengthen the point that have been made here in this discourse today. So let's get on with the discussions. And if you'd like to join the show, please feel free to join us at any time. Okay, I will be sharing the link to the discussions, and please feel free to join and call in. And please, when you call in, and then I'll be asking you if I don't know you, if I'm not aware of you, I'll be asking for you to show your face so that I can have some validations and verifications of who you are, your identity. Okay, so that is one. The other one I would like to take a moment on is the Swahili Nation One Africa fundraising that we are working on. We are working on a fundraiser to support the establishment of an office for Swahili Nation Network One Africa, and so in between, I would like to take time to inform you of those initiatives that we have taken on. Okay, so this is the Swahili Nation Network fundraising efforts that we are doing, and we would like our audience to support our work by helping us establish, or by helping us elevate our work to an office level. And your support and your donation will go a long way in helping establish that. So thank you so much for your support on that one. Please, in between our conversation, once in a while I will pop in and I will share with you where we are. So far, we've raised 3,230 euros. 3,230 euros. We're looking to raise 25,000 euros, and that will cover 15,000 of that will cover for the rent, for a 1 year rent, and the remainder 10,000 is to cover for the furniture, for furnishing the office and then furnishing the studio, so that we can do quality work that you have come to love. We can elevate our work, we can step up our work, we can improve, upgrade the work that we do to a level where we are providing you professional level media service. Professional level media service. Okay, so that is there. So please go follow the link. Even if you're not able to donate, you share with your friends, with your family, and with your with your network that you have on any one of the social media or any one of the platform that you have at your disposal, and so that people that are not aware of this possibility to support the establishment of an Africa-focused, funded by African, is supported. Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate you for that. So let's get the discussion moving, and okay. I want to do a little bit of visual background stuff. So yeah. Just want to make sure. Okay. Okay. For those of you who are just joining us, today we'll be looking at the cost of education, the cost of no education, not the cost of education, but the cost of no education. The cost of no education. So we've covered quite a bit of the data, at least education in the sense of formal education, in the sense of formal education. That means like traditional education is the one that you learn through experience, through a system of learning that communities have established that are suitable for their own setup. But when I'm looking at education, no education, when I say no education, I mean the absence of formal, well-organized, well-funded, well-operationalized education. Okay, so the absence of education can be equated with the prevalence of ignorance. The absence of education can be characterized as well as the presence and the prevalence of ignorance. Immense amount of ignorance. People deeply ignorant about their choices in their life, to be people ignorance of their own humanity and the humanity of others. The absence of education is always going to be substituted with the presence and the prevalence of ignorance. So people will say, you know what, my ethnic group is better than another ethnic group. How well informed is that? Is that on the basis of education, or is that on the basis of no education? Do people come and say to you that my ethnic group, my tribe, my community, my country, my race is better than the other race on the basis of well-informed, well-educated, or evidence-based, well-reasoned basis? Or are people telling you, are people making those claims on the basis of ignorance? When we say ignorance, lack of knowledge of other people, lack of knowledge of their race, their ethnicity, their tribes, their community, and their country, or lack of knowledge of other races, other ethnic groups, other tribes. What is the basis on which people make a claim? My tribe should oppress another tribe. My tribe should, the existence of my tribe can only be guaranteed on the elimination of another tribe. The existence of the Hutus on the basis of the elimination of the Tutsis. The existence of Yorubas on the basis of the elimination of the Hausas. The existence of the Arabs on the basis of the existence of Africans. Who can make the claim? Well, what is the basis of which? What educational basis? What informed? What reasoned and what rational basis exists to say that I exist and no one else should exist? My color, my tribe, my language, my history, my experience must exist or should exist at the expense of somebody else's tribe, somebody else's language, somebody else's culture, somebody else's experience, somebody else's history. How is that a well-informed, a well-educated, or well-reasoned, a well-organized, a well-thought-out notion to make, or argument to make, or rational to make? So that's the one issue that people are grappling with. Are people making those cases because they are aware, they are educated? Are people making the claims of, this claim of my tribe versus another tribe, my tribe or the other tribe, my language or the other language, my race or the other race? Are they making those claims on the basis of well-informed, well-reasoned, well-educated ground? Or are they making those claims on the basis of ignorance? I make the claim that people arrive at those conclusions not because they have insight and knowledge and information that supports their claim, is because they don't have the information, they don't have the data, they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the history, or they don't have the experience to make a claims. Now, there are different categories of informed, educated arguments that have been made. There are people with PhDs, degrees, and masterate, and some really like advanced education that makes a claim. That believe that their tribe, Dr. So and so believes their tribe ought to exist at the expense of another tribe. Their ethnic groups ought to exist at the expense of another ethnic groups. And they make those cases not because they don't have the information and the knowledge that such claim is falsely premised, not because they don't have that, but because they have that information, they have the premises, the false premises, they recognize the false premises, but nevertheless they pursue such a narrow path. All Arabs must be eliminated so that the Jews can exist. All Jews must be eliminated so that the Arabs can exist. All Africans must be eliminated. All black people must be eliminated so that the white can exist. Though there are people that are informed, that are educated, that make those claims, but it's not because of lack of knowledge. It's because of what? Because they wholeheartedly believe that it can get them the power they need, and the power to oppress, the power to subjugate, the power to make others subservient to their need, to their wish, and to their desire. So Marriott says, very interesting. Thank you so much, Marriott, for your comment. Marriott says this, okay? Well, I think that has to do with the lack of information or not willing to be informed. So there are people that are interested in the absence of knowledge, and the knowledge that somebody else's existence is complementary to me. So so Marriott exists so that I exist. But there are also people that don't have the information, that are absolutely devoid of the information for whatever reason that is. So I agree with you, Merit, on that one. That it's a combination of the problem. The problem is a combination of one, for the vast majority of people that I think I can make this conclusion. For the vast majority of the people that believe in the ignorance of knowledge, truths, the ignorance of knowledge, that believe, or that are swimming in that ignorance, and that ignorant filled notion that my tribe's existence cannot, my ethnic group existence cannot be guaranteed, or my race's existence cannot be guaranteed with the presence of something that is not mine, or that's not me. And so there are people that are they're swimming in that ignorance, living in that ignorance, because they somebody is here, thank you. So that believe in I got somebody here who just joined me, so I just I lost my train of thought, but BJ is here. I would like to welcome BJ into the show. Hey BJ, how are you doing?
Hey,
Welcome to the show.
how's it going? Everything's
Good,
good?
good, good, good. Everything is good. Good to see you here. Glad to see you here. I'm happy to see you here. Today we're talking about the cost of no education. What is the cost of no educations? And so, what are your thoughts on that?
It depends on what you define as education.
Exactly. Also, education in the sense of formal educations. Okay, education in the
Well,
sense
I
of
mean,
formal education.
even with formal education, are we really being educated? Because if you don't question what is being taught of you, you're not truly fully educated.
Yes.
So you know the information, you know what's being put in, but if you don't know all the components surrounding, again, I went to school, got my little degree, came out, took all the classes, the high maths and all the other stuff. But once I got a job, they had to teach me how to do the job.
Yeah.
So in everything, you have to go beyond what is just provided to you. So a lot of us claim that we're educated, but are we just conforming to the society in which we live in and taking their words as the gospel truth?
Yeah. Yeah, I think to me, being in a classroom, going through the motions of the various grades of whatever attributes of learning that you go through doesn't in itself automatically guarantee being informed, being aware, being critical, being able to be. So it's not a guarantee in of itself to addressing the issue of ignorance, the issue of ignorance about me, myself, and the issue of the ignorance about others, and all of that. But in addition to that, but what about the case where? So we looked at the case where we looked at the data on the case of formal education prevalence, the prevalence of formal educations in Africa. The prevalence of formal education in Africa is at and then it's a very degrading, it really keeps going down as you actually go up to higher levels. By the time you are in secondary education, only what 40 to 60% of them that should be going to school that are not going to school. And how so there's a saying there's nothing worse than no education, poor education is worse than no education. There's a saying in that where people going to school but not getting the good education is as bad, maybe even worse than people actually not going to school. But we also have a case where, even those who are going to school that are not going to in sufficient numbers. So is that something to consider as we try to understand what is driving our false sense of self and our false sense of understanding of our community and our connectedness, our relationship with ourselves, with fellow humanity across across societies. So what do you say about that?
When you define yourself by somebody else's standards, you're never going to meet perfection.
Yes.
So until you start looking at yourself as valuable and the greatest and have accomplished everything, and that's one thing, here we at least have the African American history, and they keep reminding of some of the things that were invented by us, great accomplishments. So we know underneath all this, we have that capability because it's been done before, and we know the conditions that they lived in. They had absolutely nothing. They had no resources, they had no power, but they were able to create stuff that even till today we are relying upon for our existence. So with that, we know with hard work we can do it. But if you take somebody else's standard and they tell you you're this and you have nothing and it's done and it's not, then you will become what they project upon you.
Yeah.
And so you have to be educated. Now, it's critical, because if you don't complete your schooling,
yes,
then you already knocked yourself off the list. Because then it become like, here, well, we would love to hire you, but you don't have a this, or you don't have a this degree, or you don't have this diploma, or you don't have this certification. So you're already knocking yourself out the box, but not even playing the game right.
Yeah. So I mean, this is so we looked at this data a while back, I think a few shows and multiple times, and this is the data of out of school rates numbers, and the numbers is staggering for sub-Saharan Africa, and the rate of out of school for primary level age is somewhere around about 18.8% of children that should be in primary that are not in there. The next highest number is North Africa and West Asia, which is Middle East. That's 9.2. And then you go to a lower secondary, which is elementary school in the US context, is that it doubles, the number that doubles goes to 36.7% for sub-Saharan Africa. And then you get to upper secondary school, and then that number, again, almost doubles. Well, not almost, not double, but like 57.5% of people that are secondary school going age that are not going there. That's like, so that number has a cost. My hypothesis is that, even, the education system as is, those who are like the 42.5% that are going to secondary school educations, I believe they are learning not the good thing. They're not learning about their value. They're not learning about their importance, their humanity. So even those that are going, I already believe they're not getting what they need to get in order to understand the value of the education that they're getting, or the value of learning, the value of knowledge, the value of, not just the value of knowledge, but also the wisdom and insight they need to derive out of knowledge. That those exercises are not being conducted, even for those that are going. But my criticism of education system is that it is like so dehumanizing that going to it itself is a danger. But if we are claiming that that's what people should be going to, and at least to actually go out there and earn something, at least to have some kind of economic mobility, even if they don't have intellectual mobility, even if they don't have spiritual mobility, even if they don't have emotional mobility that they could derive out of the education system, let's say they can derive at least on a minimum some economic mobility, or some material mobility.
Like the trains or something like that.
Yeah, even that. Even if the value of that education they're getting is for that minimum material mobility, the prevalence, the absence of that has a cost to it.
So then the question becomes, like here, education training programs are geared around what the industry is looking for and what the industries are in demand of. Yes. So my question to you guys, if you've seen a lack in your countries, are you now saying, well, we need to, because everywhere else we need more engineers, we need more doctors, we need more, plumbers, we need more carpenters, because we see this need that's coming through and we have a lack.
Yes. Absolutely. So it's a two-pronged thing. From my vantage point as an educator, I can tell you this. I want my my learners, to be fully expressed human beings. That's the goal I believe education should be, to humanize. So the material knowledge, so if I know how to engineer, is not as prominent, as important as if I understand what it means to be an engineer. Does that make sense? But that's my point of view. But putting aside my point of view, putting aside what is lacking in terms of humanizing educations, even if we measure education as is on the basis of preparing people to have mobility, economic mobility, it does fail significantly. And what is the cost of that? What is the cost? What is the cost of a child who? So 57.5% of children that should be going to Africa that should be going to secondary education, that could be deriving some arithmetic, mathematics, or some science, or some knowledge, some civic knowledge, some education, some material knowledge that they should be getting that and not getting. What is the cost of that?
Well, the cost of it is, if you think about it, if you take the average income someone may, it's been a while since they said it like here,
yes,
but just say it's $2.5 million that one person will make
yes,
in their lifetime.
Yes.
You start breaking down that 2.5 million times that 46% of those people, that means that money is not being generated in your economy, in your society, buildings, homes, items, purchases, children's schools are not being filled because this group of people are not able to sustain themselves.
Yes.
Everything here has an economic effect. So,
yes,
you have to think about it in those terms, is that if you don't educate your people and allow them to be able to sustain themselves, what are you going to do with them?
So essentially,
how are you going to support them?
Exactly.
And then furthermore, how are they going to support the society with which they live in?
So it's not just like the material costs of, let's say, not educating somebody, but the opportunity cost as well. You're pointing it by the fact that somebody who completes the education system on average, generates like this amount of resources, right? In a given in the next 40 years, but somebody who doesn't complete generate a significantly reduced value, material value, economic value, and that is the opportunity cost, right? So the cost of no education is the cost of no education for somebody, or no formal education for somebody, for a child, for a human being, is even if that person is not highly intellectualized, fully actualized human being, on the material basis, it's still costly. But then
on the social side, it's
yes,
costly, because if these same people feel like I have no, allegiance to the community,
yes,
I am just existing, so why should I fight for a community
yes,
that I'm getting no benefit out of?
yeah, exactly.
So then you have that side of the resources, because again, like they say here, renters versus a buyer. The part of the reason why they started,
yes,
with the homes, back in the day, people buy the homes because they knew stable communities has a huge impact. If the same people are living in that house for years and years, generation and generation, those stores, those, the neighborhood, the community, the structures, the parks, everything is going to be more stable than someone when you move in. Oh, it ain't mine. Why should I care about that? Because I may be gone in a matter of a year or two or whatever. So it's just not that same compassion and buy-in for your community, because a lot of times you may not even feel like that applies to them. It doesn't apply to me.
Yeah. So what you're saying, that the cost is cascading cost. So yes. So somebody who could be getting a job, or who could be working on a productive engagement that could generate wealth and some kind of opportunity for society, that's also lost. But there's also other social costs to it. That person will be on the opposite scale of it. It's actually costly in terms of like their social engagement. Like a lot of the places, like for example, I don't know if you've been following the news. People killing other people in Ethiopia, because their race, their ethnicity. These are young people that are being recruited to do these things, that are being told and informed and indoctrinated to believe the existence of another poor person. because they have a different kind of language. They look like you. I mean, if you look at their physical attributes, they almost look alike, but they have a different kind of language attributes. That is like, so they become susceptible to this. So those people that are not part of, that are not going through the education system are not only not contributing economically. In fact, there's not only opportunity cost of not contribution to the economy that we are calculating as a cost, but their negative contribution, social contribution. That's also part, so that makes the cost even cascading, right?
Oh yeah, and the thing is that then, because I'm going through all this stuff and I have no one to lash out to. Yes. Now I'm gonna lash out at you. You're my problem. You're the reason why I'm living in the conditions I'm living, or my mother, or whatever. Because it's your fault. Because you're an easier target than the target that really is keeping you oppressed and preventing you from breaking out of your condition.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then what do they teach their children and their children's children? Because kids carry that forever. I could think of things I'm going through that, I've seen and experienced as a child, and you still carry it. But because I'm an adult, I understand how to process it. But some people never, no matter how they're, never understand the reason why these things occurred and who was truly behind, the situation and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so then the kids, are saying as they get older, well, why did this happen? They will not even be able to give you a full breakdown of, other than that tribe spoke another language than we, and then we just started. But what is the true reason? Why is this occurring? I mean, why are you feeling that that's your only option out?
Mm-hmm.
And who truly, and I'm always saying this over and over again, benefits from it? Because nothing happens without somebody benefiting from it.
Yeah.
So
there's always a benefit to the disruption, to the chaos, because there are people who are profiting from chaos. I mean, I can give you an example. We could look at the Congo crisis. Congo since independence has been, the Democratic Republic of Congo since independence has been on perpetual conflict. But at the same time, Congo is one of the preeminent locations for some of the most exclusive minerals and resources that are used for major and critical technologies, major inputs to some of the critical technologies that are being used in the world. So, I mean, why is Congo in constant conflict? Why is
you just stated it.
Yes.
If I could keep the conflict between you and me, then the dude in the truck with the big drill, you ain't got time to deal with him because I'm too busy fighting with you.
Yeah.
You keep the conflict, it makes it easier for me to take what you have. Now, if we are not conflicting and we come together and say we need to unify and do things that's going to benefit us as a whole, that means the dude with the big drill is now going to have to negotiate and adhere to your terms. And they do not want to do that.
I mean, like people say, oh, one of the reasons that Africa is poor is because it's dependent on raw materials, right? But you realize if you pay attention closely in the world economy, there are a number of non-African countries that depend, not necessarily totally, but at least depend in large parts to raw material extraction that are extremely wealthy and economically, upwardly.
But the thing is those same countries providing 80% of their wealth and putting it in a foreign bank?
Yes. Exactly. And that's it.
So nobody want to talk about that side of it. They just want to say, you got everything. Why? And that's why it just frustrates me, because you want to simplify everything when everything is not simple. And when your hands are dirty, you want to act like they're clean. No.
Yeah. You look. I'll go back to the Congo crisis, and then you realize, from this extraction corporations perspective, they are looking at the cost and benefits, right? They're calculating the cost and benefits. Of course, some kind of disturbance and some kind of political uncertainty has its cost, right, for them, for their operations. So if they have to bring in all these foreigners that are experts in the Portuguese that is an expert, or Belgian as an expert on some engineering, they will have to travel to Congo, but they have to. So they will calculate. Okay, we can provide private security, or we can pay for UN peacekeeping operations that will specifically only focus on protecting the actual mining areas, and the rest of the areas they could just basically they will calculate what it is cost to provide a sufficient amount of security for themselves in the midst of promoting the chaos they're looking for, so that the area they are drilling in, the area they are extracting those resources from, don't have a cogent system or a unified system, or they won't come unified enough and say, you know what, we should negotiate a better deal here than you're offering us right now. Like, if I say to people, like, if Canada has what Congo has, Canada will be 10 times richer than it is right now.
Right.
Because in Canada, this chaos system is not allowed, is not permitted, it's not financed, it's not organized, it's not deliberately done, right? So,
but even with what you're saying, these foreign security systems, they're there to secure their foreign investment. They don't care nothing about anybody there. And why don't they hire local? Because again, the local might say, you said you was going to take two bananas, and you take 200 bananas. Something ain't right here. So no, of course they don't want you there.
Yes.
And until you get your money out of somebody else's hands, and that has to stop too, because how can you control your money if it's in somebody else's hands?
Yeah.
And they only give you pennies back of what you own.
Yes. It is a problem that can only be solved if we are informed about it. If we are informed about the big picture here, like the big picture of all the resources that we have are so incredibly valuable.
Yes.
Right? Incredibly valuable to power, and they're powering the world's technology. They're powering the world's economies. Like they're powering the world and the well-being of those in the West. Right? That's how important those resources that we own and have are. And
the thing is that there's more than enough to continue to power the world, but you got to power yourself first.
Yes.
You should benefit from what's yours, not more than anybody else. Because again, you go around this globe, ain't nobody else's stuff benefiting somebody else more than them.
Yeah. That's it. It is like, you have to come to the realization of the power that you possess. And that is education. That is knowledge. That is insight. And that is wisdom. That is what ultimately will be the saving grace of Africa. To me, the same thing, I can go on you have a much better expertise on this. But you look at inner cities here in the US, inner city education system, that you see for Africans. A 14-year-old, a 13-year-old kid, what is the thing that they learn when they go? Because they have to go to school, right? It's not like Africa where they don't there's a high dropout rate. There is no high dropout rate. They have to go through at least some kind of elementary and high school. But young people are continuously, these inner city kids are informed that they cannot trust themselves. And how do you do that? Very simple and subliminal, very subtle way. Like, you have a metal detector. When you are walking into, a 12-year-old kid who just, all of a sudden you are in high school somewhere in Chicago, in the suburbs of Chicago, or some inner city of Chicago, and then your school, when you get into it, you have that metal detector. What information is sending to that child? Oh, you cannot, I don't trust you, and you should not trust yourself. That you are destined for violence and guns and destruction and killing and drug.
And then they'll take that persona on and become what you are projected upon them. That's the biggest problem with education, because we used to be like one of the #1 education systems in the world, and now all of a sudden we're like way down in the numbers. Yes. So what is that telling you? Are they saying that we don't need the people, and therefore why should we educate them? Mm-hmm. Because then, like you said, it becomes all the violence, all the school truancy, all the other. So we're almost policing our kids more than we're trying to educate them.
Yes. I mean,
and that's being done for a reason, because they need these kids for a reason. So what is the reason? So then you flip it over a little bit, and you're like, oh, the school to prison pipeline. So they're looking for free labor. See, they play games and say it's for your benefit, but when you start pulling back the peel, layers on the onion, you're like, wait a minute, this is not adding up.
Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, so in the case of the poor, the black, the brown, and the minorities of these communities, it's all about the pipeline into a prison system that has already been commercialized, right? But not just commercialized, but it's also a very low, almost modern day slavery kind of job.
No, it is. That's the one area in the Constitution they says slavery was allowed, is in the prison system. So now you become a body. You have no rights. We have total authority over you, and we can do whatever we want to you.
So the system is a mousetrap. It's basically a mousetrap. It's basically drug you. And of course, if you are an exceptional, so you have to be, obviously, to really pass through it, you have to be exceptional in that, in spite of the system, you succeed. So those exceptionals, they will have a little bit of an arena for them to play, right? Like, either in sports or some few areas of science, and some fields you see like, minorities. I mean, I don't know why, and I hate the word minorities. I mean, like, minorities in the context of America, but they're not minority in the world. So, but in that sense, like, it's a mousetrap. But if you are exceptional, that means exceptional not because the system has allowed you to play to a point where you exercise your exceptionalism, but you're exceptional in that the system doesn't seem to find a way to trap you. You're too smart, too intelligent, too strong, too capable to be able to be trapped. Then you become this kind of like a different kind of pipeline of different kind of opportunities and different kind of wealth that can be generated out of you, right? So that's another angle to it.
Yeah, and that's how they get you,
Yes.
And people don't realize that we're made to think that, oh yeah, they did something wrong, they deserve to be in prison, but then you find a lot of people are in prison and they haven't even done anything. But no one's searching on the back end to say these corporations are wrong for hiring prison labor. No, we're not saying anything. Or what companies are using prison labor. No one questions that side of things. So they point you in one direction while you're not seeing what's going on in the other direction.
And it's basically like, a mousetrap is a mousetrap, right? There has to be some infrastructure, right, to support that.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's a trap, right? So like a child goes graduates from elementary and goes into a high school in inner city, right? That is the infrastructure of the trap, right? You get in,
yes.
And then you are informed of so you are dehumanized from the get-go. From the moment you get in, you're dehumanized. from a moment you get in, you have no aspirations. If you have aspirations, you're delusional, right? If an inner city child has aspiration to succeed beyond what is, socially outlined definition of what is successful, like, oh, I want to be a successful human being, I want to be a fully expressed human being, could be a simple aspiration, right? So,
right.
So in that sense, when you think about it, so like, a child comes in, those things are kind of like taken out of you, like they are like consistently and systematically, deconstructed. Your humanity
right.
is deconstructed, and
therefore those children have to be extremely strong to see beyond the rhetoric that's trying to be drilled into their heads. I think what happens a lot of times is that, because I've seen it a million times in school where, you're not smart, you're not this, you're like your brother, you're not going to be anything. And they take on that. Unless you look at like, well, I was the type of like, okay, who are you? You're not God. You can't tell me what I'm going to be or what I'm not going to be. I'm just going to be quiet and do what I have to do. And if I fail at it, then maybe you might be right. But if I don't at least try, I won't even know where I could go.
Yeah.
But they'll break the kids down really early, and they'll start getting in trouble, and then they'll also push that person in their lives, and they're usually the older kids or the teenagers start hanging out with the younger kid. Come on, you could like rob this, you could do this, and you could do that, and, get them involved in stuff that they shouldn't even be involved in.
Yeah.
And then once they got that on them, it's hard to shake it off because you live in a community that and it's not by accident. It's done by design.
Yeah, I mean, so that trap is essentially like if you want to trap something, right? And you want to take all the avenues, all potential exits out of so you have to find a way to guide the very thing that you're trapping into the trap that you say is set for them. And then because they are human beings, it's a quite a tall ask. It's a very difficult ask to do, to conduct a trap like that. But eventually, most will fall. I can guarantee you this, like, you're making, when you're a child, you're making decisions as much as you are an adult. But when you're a child, you don't have as much informed, like, you're looking at it from the prism of a child. I mean, I remember my 12-year-old, and many people remember when they were 12, 11, 10, when they are making those choices, whether I like this, I don't like this. I'm good at this, I'm not good at this.
But the thing is a lot of times where they really get you is they make you believe the traps don't even exist.
Exactly.
If you don't think it's there, then you're not in fear of falling into it.
No, because like it's so easy to convince a child of that, right? But once you have gone through the multiple, the tree of decisions that you make, by the time you are 16, 18, 20, 21, you've made way too many choices that will make that trap almost inevitable.
Yeah.
So so at that age, it's not inevitable. So as an educator, I used to teach a lot of kids on this element of it. I used to say, take any 10 students, take 100 students, I guarantee you somewhere between 1% and 5% of them are exceptional. It is regardless of how well organized my system is, regardless of it, irrespective of what I offer them or not offer them, they will succeed. They will succeed because they are exceptional enough. There are a number of social factors that are at play too. Like sometimes some people have a community environment around them that are either negative or positive that inspires them. Like some people have a parent that is not present that inspires them. Some people have a parent that exists the positive parent that exists that also inspires them. And those people are exceptional people. What I noticed is that my educational system that I used to build, the success of education system that I built was not cannot be measured based on those exceptional students, because they will do well whether I put in there the best teacher or the worst teacher. Right. But I realize that the measure of the success of an education system is how well you take those the middle ones that are like, either they have the motivations but don't know how to go about it, or they know how to go about it but they don't have the motivations. It's a combination of this. And so then you can organize and deliberately. So the trap that you set to entrap somebody for a bad, you can use that very same operational framework to liberate them. Does that make sense? So the education system can be an instrument of liberation as much as it is a tool of oppression and a tool of entrapment. So it's that middle ground where you say, you know what, do you think this decision you made is a good decision or a bad decision? That conversation that you have on a daily basis, like, why are you struggling with this? How can I help you with this? That kind of back and forth, that dialogue, that we'll call it a dialogical education. The education that is a dialogue. So there's formal system.
And the weakest is, because again, if a student is weak at something, then they learn in a different manner.
Yes. And so what I realized, so that this thing that you're talking about is that trap is set for that group of the vast majority of the students that are there. And then there's a bottom group that is almost a mirror image of the top group. A bottom group that's a mirror image, that is out to find a way to rebel, to be against something, to just inherent quality for them to say no to anything, to any system, to any establishment. That's a different kind of system that is required for that. But the exceptional students, whether they are like, I think you've experienced enough to know, like even in African American stories, those students that do excel, even in spite of the system, are the ones that have the internal rigor, that internal motivation, that internal desire, and then also that have the ability to figure out and navigate problems, navigate the system in such a way that they can see the trap, they can smell the trap before you even set it up. And, sometimes, even among them, they get caught. But, BG, I really appreciate you. I have somebody else who just joined us, Romisha Franks. Romisha Frank, can I see you? I've never met you before. Is it okay for you to show me a video just for a moment before I let you in? And I will appreciate to just see you so I can. So this is a system of verification that we have here in the background. I see you in the background, but I want to put you up and I want to include you in the conversations. As we wait for you, I want to really thank some of the comments that are coming. Very smart, intelligent comment coming from from Merit, from the only. You've said a number of important things. Sometimes the only says sometimes it's about pride. It's about pride and power, especially when it comes to those who are academically educated. And I'm just reading your comments. Chrissy, my colleague in the Swahili Nation Network, says education never ceases. Every day is and should be a learning process to both educated and less educated. I call it lifelong learning. And in the system of learning I used to implement, I used to call this lifelong learning. You're always learning and growing. Learning and growing is a human pursuit. It's part of. It should be something part of a human. What is virtue? When we say virtue, what is good about humanity? Learning and growing should be one of those things that should be measured. So thank you, Christian, for that point that you just made. The only says then enforcing skills to the population is most important to impart to the society for the economy in the long run. So like education enforcement must be taken seriously. That's what I think he means. He also so he or she, the only, I don't know whether you are he or she. Congo has no security, and multinationals are backed by G7 governments, so that Congo must remain as it is for the richer countries. That is almost a consensus among Africans about that. Another one he points 2 is American exceptionalism doesn't allow mineral-rich countries to contend with their hegemony. So it is structurally planned. It's a structural element. I think this is what BG is pointing out. Neo says basic education is very important, should be free. Basic education should be important and very should be free. Another point that Neo makes is skill development of teens is not slavery. Employ teens for their after school. Okay, I mean nobody said skill development for this thing is. Thank you, BJ. I know you might have to go somewhere. I appreciate you. I appreciate your participations. Okay. Okay. Ramisha, Frank, I'll let you in. Just let me finish the comment here. Okay, thank you. Hey, Ramisha, I know sometimes some people don't want to show their face, but I really wanted to see your face before I let you in, but it's okay. So before I let you in, Ramisha, I just want to...
No, you cannot see my face.
Oh, no, we want to make sure. We have had people that have done very indecent things, so I want to make sure that...
But I was here last night. Oh. I was kindly invited back here today at 2 o'clock, which I told them I had to work. I came back, and then I get you. And trust me, you have not been a pleasant experience so far.
What's wrong? How unpleasant was that? Like, is it?
Why don't you check yesterday's tape? Why don't you check yesterday's tape? Because right now I'm about to click this X because you have gotten on my last nerve.
Wait, yesterday I wasn't there yesterday. Okay, so Ramisha is slightly confused. I wasn't there yesterday. I don't know. I have not taken part in yesterday's conversation, so I didn't know. I'm not aware of what happened, what transpired yesterday. But Ramisha, please feel free to come in anytime you like and really share your thoughts and ideas. This platform is about respect. It's about valuing each and every African. It's about love, peace, and unity for Africa. So if you feel like you want to be part of that conversation on the basis of these principles, feel free to come anytime. Okay, Neo, you've made a number of important points. I would like to continue to point. Oh, okay. Oh, the only is a she. Thank you. And I'm sorry about if I misappropriated your any attribute to you, but now that I know, I will always remember you as you have informed me right now. So, but your comments are incredible. The only you made incredible comments. Neo, flexibility is also important because stuff changes all the time. Let's talk about edutainment too. Edutainment, so like I've heard of this term before, but I'm not fully aware of what it represents or what it means or what it stands for. So please feel free to inform me, Neo, about what it means by what do you mean by edutainment? Okay, thank you for that. Okay, okay, so to continue on the Neo's point, okay, by the way, one of my favorite names is Neo. I don't know if you are a fan of the Matrix, but yeah. So that, so it says flexibility is also important because staff changes all the time. Yes, these turnovers are very high in schooling systems because we don't appreciate enough to put enough resources to maintain and sustain and keep people on board. So we get a lot of staff turnovers. And that's another challenge in schools, so that adults can learn on TV, radio, while being entertained. Oh, okay, I see what entertainment is. Okay, so education that transcends beyond the formal system, using various platforms like TV and radio to continue adult education, adult learning. I think what Chrissy was talking about, lifelong learning earlier. Okay, so thank you. I really appreciate that. Neo, for that. Thank you guys for your comments and suggestions. I really appreciate BJ. BJ has been incredible having a conversation with me and really diving into some of the issues that we're talking about as a challenge for education and in the absence of education, particularly from an American experience, an African American experience, which is different from the African experience, which is characterized by the data that I'm showing you on the screen there. The African experience is characterized by a huge number of absence or lack thereof of any education system, any formal, informal education system that is organized, deliberate, operationalized education system. So you can see it in the data. That this is a 2018 data that showcases a huge number of out-of-school children, particularly at the higher level. Particularly when you say at a higher level, we're talking about adolescents and youth. You have a sub-Saharan Africa that has a 36.7% rate of out of school rates, and then you have for lower secondary school, usually that is pre-secondary school in some schooling district, and in the case of upper secondary school, usually high school, that is somewhere around 57%. As you see here, 57.5% out of school rate. That's more than the majority. So of all those people that should be going to or should be attending some form of secondary education, 57.5% of them are not getting it. So the absence of any education is that characterizes the challenge of the education system in the context of Africa. Okay, so thank you, the only for your presence and for your attendance, and then feel free if you would like to join in and then really highlight some of the things that we are trying to do here, or even have a point of view that you would like to share. Feel free to join us. I will share the link to it in a moment. Just give me a second. I'm trying to okay, just give me a second here. Okay. So if you feel like you want to be a part of the show, join us. You have to say, you have to share. Go to the link, and we will have a possibility. Oh, BJ is back. Thank you, BJ. Coming back. Hi, BJ.
Oh, sorry about that.
It's okay. It's okay. I mean, like our conversation has been very important. So thank you so much. Go ahead.
To the left, it's like Sesame Street, but they had all kinds of programs on TV, like on Saturday mornings. They would go through, all type of from sentence structure, what is a noun, what is a verb, and you just repetitively watch these shows on TV, and it taught you so much knowledge. And if you did something like that, that would probably be a huge improvement.
There's a little bit of a network problem. I don't know if it's from my end. BJ, it got cut off a little bit. You might want to repeat yourself whenever you get a network back. Feel free to repeat yourself. To repeat what you said, because either on my end. Oh, okay, I see. BJ, I think
let me see what I'm doing wrong.
That's okay. It's okay. So you got two BJs. Okay, well, let's. I'm picking.
I got a twin out there. Tell her I need some money.
Yeah. So yeah. So
No, but I was just saying that we
yeah,
used to have television shows which were like to help the kids, like what is a noun, what is a verb, multiplication, and just they would play it like every Saturday, and like during like school hours, you had like these other television shows that would come on every day, and it would teach the kids certain things. So when they go to school, they will retain it, and it will help them out. So that's one way you could help them to learn without having to have a huge structure in classrooms and stuff like that. And then some people are auditory, it's easier for them to do it that way versus, visual or tactile.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I mean, some people don't know that, what you just mentioned. Some people don't know that about the learning styles, the auditory, the tactile, the visual, and all of these things. The feel.
Okay, like if it's visual, if you see something, you retain it and you learn.
Yes.
Like people who said photographic memory, those will be people who are visual. Tactile means if I do this test repetitively,
touching, feeling,
then you retain it and you learn it that way. And sometimes you can have like two. And then auditory, if somebody speaks to you, you can follow those directions to the letter because you retain the information in your brain, process it, and then you may be auditory and tactile. So if you show me and give me the instructions, I got it. Yes.
Thank you.
So there's different learning styles.
Yes, yeah. I mean,
and some people even take it to music.
Hi, BJ. How you doing?
How you doing today? How's everything going? And so even with music, some people like rhythmic and patterns.
BJ, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear
we can hear you.
Coming through?
Yeah, you're coming through. Yeah, we can hear you.
How you doing, BJ?
How are you doing?
How's your morning been?
Okay.
All I heard was okay.
Ramesh, what do you think? What do you think about what do you think about the cost of no education? What is do you have any opinion?
Well, I will share some things about the school system.
Okay.
I actually have a lot, but there seems to be a lot of I think it's actually on your answer, connection problems. Because me, BJ, and you are on different parts of the world.
What do you mean?
I think you might have been right. I heard.
I think we're having a little bit of problem hearing you, Ramisha. Can you hear us?
Hello?
Exactly. I don't think it's us. I think it's you, sir.
No, I can hear him fine.
Yeah.
So it's not. And can you hear me?
But you get cut off and he keeps going.
No, but I haven't gotten cut off.
This time I can hear you. Yes.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, then I'll just come out.
But he's hosting the. But he's hosting. If the problem is on his end, then
it's not a problem. Everybody has
different. That's where it's gonna stay.
Everybody have different internet connections, and based upon your internet connection determines if you're gonna have. If you're in a dead zone, it will drop.
Yes.
Until you get in the zone where the signal is stronger. So it's not on him. It's on because again with YouTube.
No, I'm literally. I actually do this for a living.
And so do I.
If he is hosting the room and he's having problems, that's going to make it come through as if we are having problems.
But I'm not having any problems. My problems was because of me going into a dead zone. That's what I'm trying to explain to you.
Really, you just came
I'm
in
not
twice.
having a problem. My internet.
Because I came through
BJ,
a dead
you just
zone,
came
and
in
I
twice.
came
I saw
through.
you.
I know that because I came through a dead zone, and I came through twice. It wasn't him; it was me. That's what I'm trying to explain.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, y'all just run that how you want to. You know, I was invited here last night.
No,
I definitely thought I would get a different energy.
My
No.
I
internet speed right now.
definitely thought I would get a different energy.
So
I don't understand. What do you
this is
mean?
my internet speed right now. 41.5 megabytes per 0.5. So 41.5 megabytes per second is my speed right now. So I just tested it. It looks like my internet
Well,
is
it's
fine.
not
I don't know
always
if
about your
it's
speed limit. Sometimes it's about the
yeah.
clouds in the air.
Oh, okay. Okay, it could be that too. So, like today, our topic is about. So every Wednesday we have a segment called "Education in the 21st Century." That's every Wednesday, and then we try to see what are the issues and educations around the world, in Africa particularly, and for people of African descent and Africans and brown and minorities in the US and maybe even, but they're no minority in Africa. So, for what is the cost of not getting good education? That's what BJ and I have been talking about for almost an hour. BJ has been very informative about really trying to help us understand what is the implication of what it means not to get good educations or not to get any educations.
You mean how it
Affect the
practically
child
affects
and the
the
family.
young people?
Yes.
Is that what you're
Yes,
asking?
that's what we're looking at.
I think I kind of touched a little bit on this last night, but what they're doing and where it comes from. But seeing as this is the subject of the day, I'm going to have to reiterate what I say. Those are our children, and it's our job to educate them. I have had to play both ends of the stick while in raising my children. I've had to put them in the building, but yet still go and do everything I need to do as a parent, as a human, as a fully functional adult, make the money, and then still go to the store where they sell the supplies, where they sell it to the teachers, and go to those places and reach out and do it for myself, because that is my child. And how it affects them, we are fighting a war that I just don't think, I think it's a lot of talk and not enough action.
Okay.
Okay, good point. Thank you for that point. Really appreciate that. We have another guest, Miki, one of our favorite participants in this panel, in this segment. I really appreciate you coming joining us. We also have very active comment sections. Neo has been making great comments. One of the ones I love is Kendrick Lamar is a great African history teacher. I think there's a lot of people who can't agree on that. I mean, he uses entertainment or I think Neo was pointing to the point of let's use entertainment, and I think BJ was also making the case that we used to have those things on Saturday mornings or Saturday evenings, wherever, different countries, different culture, different context. We have those TVs where you had some like education that empowers children, that inform children of that. So. And
that may be one way you can teach your languages. This is,
yes.
This is what it means in French. This is what it means in your native tongue. And then, even have a video about, the way things were done in your villages and stuff like that. And they get a broader perspective of the possibilities in life. Because I know here, I'm just looking at the books that my nieces were using in math, and I remember the ones that I used, they broke down factoring. Now I'm looking at, this is one page and it's supposed to teach you everything about math. What are you supposed to do with this? You're not even learning the concept of how this divides into anything. So because there was the internet, that helped, because then you could see the steps and the structure of how to generate, this calculation. But just going based upon that book that they were given in the schools, I'm like, who can learn in this? I mean, so it's like it's almost on purpose that they're trying to keep the information out of the children's hands.
I think to me is to like that that trap thing that we're talking about earlier on. The trap part of that, so you can use the infrastructure of learning to liberate a person, to empower the learner, or you could use the system, the infrastructure of learning space to dehumanize the person and to imprison the person, to give them on the path to prison, or some kind of intellectual prison, spiritual prison, and then ultimately to physical prison, the sense that I'm powerless, the sense that I don't have the tools, the sense that I depend on this. I don't depend on my... So ultimately, the ultimate learning objective is for any learning institution or any learning environment is to liberate and empower. Liberate in the sense that recognize that as a human being, I'm capable of, charting a path individually, and as a community, I have agency. But that's the liberation part. But the empowerment part is the tools, instruments of materializing that liberation. Materializing that liberation, meaning that, when I go out there, if I can't find a job, then I'll create a job. If I have a job, I will make something of it for myself, not just only for somebody else. Or if I have to pursue knowledge, I'll pursue knowledge because I care about it. But knowledge is not enough. I want insight and wisdom. That is the liberation and then an empowerment journey. A lot of the time, they have very same instructions. The textbook that you have could be the tools of your imprisonment, or could be the tools of your freedom. That's how powerful it is. So, like I say to my learners nowadays, that if you go to my classroom, to my school, thinking that you are in the presence of God in front of your teachers, then you are in a journey to imprison yourself. But if you go there as your teachers, your instrument of learning, are signposts for these things, so that's the difference between that infrastructure that you talk about, that book you talk about, even the example that you gave about the Saturday morning, that can be used to inform.
So
to be something.
You muted me?
No. I'm
you do realize that only people who are weak.
Ramisha, look, I am very kind and gentle
You
person.
muted me, sir. No.
I am a very kind and gentle person. Okay? But I'm a force that you don't want to deal with. I'm a force you don't want to deal with.
What? You keep wanting to mute me, sir. Why do you keep muting me?
Because I'm muting you because you're disrupting. You're becoming like like a scant version of your ego, an empty bottle that makes too much noise. An empty bottle that makes too much noise. If you have something of substance to say, share. But I respect your humanity. I respect your agency. But the respect I have for your agency.
My bottle is perfectly full. My bottle is perfectly full. Afraid of me? Why are you afraid?
The respect I have for your humanity, for your agency.
What you scared of? What you scared of? You keep trying to silence me, and that's what they do to us. And you want to silence me because what? Why?
Why? What are you want to say on the subject?
No, because since I came into the room, he's been.
BJ
is this BJ talking?
BJ was talking. There was a noise in the background.
Is it? No, I'm at.
Do you want to?
Ramisha?
No. Do you want to respectfully?
Was that BJ that asked me a question? And see, he just kept muting my.
I'm muting her because.
No.
Look, I don't.
BJ asked me a question.
Look, if you want to have a conversation, you can stay on. Otherwise, I will remove you.
Is that your problem? Do you lack humility, sir?
Do you want me to remove you?
No one else can talk.
Do you want me to remove you?
Well, Ramisha, what is your view on the education system and the effects it's having on children?
I was trying to tell him, but he kept muting me, BJ. I was trying to tell him, but
we're going to be respectful of everybody and everybody's views, and we understand everybody has a different perspective and have different experiences.
Miki.
Yeah, but that's not how he's treating me, and I don't
himself.
appreciate that. And don't mute me
When
again,
I was
sir.
talking, BJ
I don't appreciate that at all.
When BJ was talking, I had to mute you because sound was coming in, and the audience are disturbed by the sound.
It was a background noise.
Unmute yourself. You can always, like the way you're doing it right now, you can always unmute yourself and talk and express your point of view. Look, feel free to express your point of view.
Really, is that what you're going with, sir?
You have a point of view.
Is that what you're going with? Because you know what, my sound hasn't changed.
Don't try to subjugate somebody else's agency. This is a community here.
No. What you're not gonna do is gaslight me, sir. And you did all the things you just trying to put on me. That's what you tried to do to me, and I don't accept that.
Okay, then don't.
I came in. I tried to say hello.
It's not for you.
I was pleasant,
this
and I was all.
Thank you. You're not invited here. So this place is for people that have a degree of decency and respect for each other. We don't have to agree on point of views. We can have separate in our own ideas and our own point of views is fine, absolutely fine. But we respect each other because we all are human beings. We are all God's created human beings. And we have equal rights and equal respect on this planet. But we respect each other. And that's the goal that I want to point out. Ramosha, if you want to you can always come back. But you're not just dealing with me. You're dealing with all the things I represent. And you're dealing with all the things BJ represents. You're dealing with all the things every one of here represents, which is their humanity. That's what you're dealing with. So you have to respect that. Nobody is here colluding and conspiring to mute somebody because it's a waste of time. I waste my time conspiring to shut somebody up. It's a waste of my time. So we have much more serious, much more important objective to achieve, which is the total and absolute liberation of our people and through authentic knowledge. Through authentic knowledge. That is the goal that we have. And those who are here, they respect and they value that. They share that value. They share that vision. We generated that vision. We generated that mission with this team here, with this group of people that are coming in and sharing their point of view, sharing their experience, sharing their value, sharing their knowledge, and sharing their insight and sharing their wisdom. And that's what we are here for. So if you want to be part of that group, if you want to join that group, just elevate yourself to that level. It's just an elevation. It's not a degradation. It's just elevation. Elevation to your true humanity. Humanity means understanding and appreciating yourself as you would appreciate others. And appreciating others as you would appreciate yourself. Thank you so much. I'm sorry, I apologize for the disruption, BJ and Miki. Miki, welcome. I know you had a network problem earlier. Welcome back again. BJ, if you have something to say, I'll let you say a few words, and then we'll go to Miki afterwards.
Okay, yeah, because the thing is that we have to find alternate ways to teach children, and again, once they're educated, ways for them to be able to sustain themselves, even if it's micro businesses or like they always say here, find something that is missing and learn how to market it, and you will make money off of it. I mean, just if you think 20 years ago, who would think someone would get in a stranger's car to get a ride? But Uber is like one of the biggest businesses everywhere. And then they just took that to another level, say, well, okay, maybe they won't get in the car, but you can pick up food and deliver it. Now everywhere gets Uber Eats and Grubhub, and no one thinks about it. Yes. You find something that's missing and you learn how to market it and make money off it. And it doesn't have to be where you have to have a higher education and all that. You just start small, even if the person say, okay, there's these restaurants downtown, and I know people working in the building over there. Maybe I'll start a little business that I can take people's lunch orders and then go pick up their food and bring it back to their office. something is as simple as that. And then you get a bunch of your friends or whatever, a bunch of the other guys that you know who are, may not be working. You're going to work this building, you're going to work that building, you're going to work this area, you're going to work near these restaurants. And it can blossom in something huge, and it'll give the youth something to do and that they can sustain themselves.
I call it the miniaturization of education. You miniaturize it in such a way that only what is relevant, what is useful, what is important is delivered at the moment of need. When that person needs it, they get it. And then like, oh, I want to learn how to code. It's there. I want to learn how to figure out how to optimize my presence in the market. There's some knowledge in there. You could go there. So there's all sorts of tools and instruments out there that are already utilizing that. Like even if there's no Uber or Uber Eats or Lyft in your country or in your region, there's another person who learned, oh no, this Uber, this dominates somewhere, but there's an open market in my area. Let me come up with an app. It's just as simple as creating an app, right? So there's also those innovations that are taking place all over the world, and not just in the US, but all over the world, because we're learning that you don't have to get all the formal educations of 15, 20 years of educations to get somewhere and succeed, right? And I think that's the point that you wanted to. That's the point that you are stressing, and I think I agree with you on that one. I mean, I was sharing this page the other day with some people. Like one of the sessions that we covered, we looked at this, and this is one of the things that I don't know. Okay, so as the thing loads up, I'll let Mickey join us. Mickey, welcome. Long time no here. Long time I haven't seen you in a long time. Welcome to my show, to our show. So what is your thoughts and ideas on what we covered and what we discussed so far?
Yeah, how are you doing, guys? Yeah, I've been lost for a long time. I was kind of busy with stuff.
Yes.
How's everything going?
Nice. God bless, everything's good. And I actually missed the show and you guys. And the thing I just wanted to add up was I didn't go online. I didn't hear much of the things, but I just want to pick up from you where you stopped. And yeah, we can master this already innovated ideas in other nations and implement them in our countries and our regions by giving them authentic stuff which represents our place that we're settling on right now. But one of the things that is challenging and is a barrier is if you're not, as an example in Ethiopia, because people were educated back in the days, they mastered everything through this, what's it called, experience. Yeah, they were so educated with experience, but when the new terminology of education changed and it came through the 20-year education system and the degree, the BA, the master's, the PhD, people started to, what is it called, devalue the experience type of education. So once that happens, everybody puts both of their eyes and all their eggs in the modern education basket, and they start not respecting the people that are not educated but are innovators and creative people and potential entrepreneurs. So we first, as consumers of this kind of creative stuff, which is created by people that are not modernly educated, we need to respect them as consumers. Let's say, as you give an example like Uber, if a person with a BA or a master's created Uber, it will boom in a short period of time. But if someone who's in the 5th grade dropped school and just noticed that marketing gap and that potential demand and supply gap and created Uber, he would probably be challenged I can guarantee you in my country right now to not be accepted, or either he needs to back up his team with educated people and stuff like that. So I think we need to change the mindset of the consumers in most senses. Those are the people I think need to be educated the most.
I mean, I think some of the things is the perception that formal education is of great value as much as, I mean, like, there's more of a perception than a reality. Like, you know, I'm just showing on the screen, you know, it's just a simple my profile on codeacademy.com, where I learned to do a little bit of coding here and there. And I did it for just experimenting, just to experiment what is out there. Like, in terms of, if I want to learn coding, what can I do? So if I wanted to learn coding when I was in college in the early 2000s, you know, the coding sphere was, I had to take a computer science class in the college, in the university I was attending, and, you know, pursue courses after courses, and then I'll pick up those coding lessons. But today, you know, like less than 20 years later, I mean, what you have is that abundant resources available for people to pursue computer coding out there. Of course, there's always value that you get by paying, but even without paying, you can still get so much more than you used to get when I had to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to get back in my day of, you know, college education. So
yeah, and then you had to have the operating system in order to even try to run a program. You couldn't, so you needed all this equipment just to try to get your code to run. Where now you can go to a website and run the code and see the results immediately.
So you can have a very bare knuckle kind of like Chrome platform where it doesn't have enough hard drive in it, or doesn't have to have high processing. Everything is on the cloud, right? Everything is so like out there. You don't have to have hosting of, you know, a very powerful system. You know, like nowadays nobody even talk about like, oh, powerful Intel, powerful that. Nobody really, right? It's not a big deal anymore because your phone is as powerful, right? So I mean, like I have an Oculus I've been experimenting on where I do my actual office work, on virtual space. I mean, this is the era that we're in. So the problem that we are lacking today is not the availability of resources. It is the recognition on people that live on this planet Earth that there's more resources available to them that they actually recognize. That they are still stooping to the notion that, like what Mickey was talking about, yes, you are creative, you are innovative, but you haven't had formal educations. I'm not going to give you credits. I'm not going to give you a loan, or I'm not going to give you accreditations. Because in some countries, they give accreditation. So you want to start, let's say, so somebody who drop out from grade 9, start a technology company, let's say in Ethiopia, wants to establish a business, a computer coding business, I'm sure the licensing agency will say, oh, what's your accreditation? You have to get a coding or computer coding or computer science accreditation from some university. But an American kid who pursues, like, you know, drops out from college, pursues a startup on coding, doesn't need to have accreditation to start up a business. So that imbalance that you see is like we Africans are actually preventing our people from actually, you know, using these new and up and coming shortcuts that are coming in as, you know, as a way to resolving some of the long held crises. So we have the resources, but we don't have the ability to mobilize these resources for the gain that we should be getting. Nikki.
Oh yeah, like yeah, you just added up a good point. Yeah, it's all about like mobilization, and that comes through the joint of all of the different resources. Because as we've seen before, like to be honest, we need to divide the aspects. Like as an African in general, what are we getting from, and who are we getting it from? Like, because if we like divided the market right now, we have the natural resources, we have the human resources, but we're not providing education at the level that we're supposed to. Plus, where are we getting our equipment? We're getting our equipment from the Asians, the Indians, and so on. If you notice, of most of our equipments, especially based on technology, it's not coming from the West. We're getting education from the West. And what's that causing? It's making us lose our authentic identity and our knowledge. So I believe we need to be more concerned about first uh, pausing the education flow, like being conscious where it's coming from, how it's coming, and putting it on pause without like missing out on the world. Then we need to be focused on providing ourselves with equipments that can master our mobilization skills in a faster mode. And as we've seen before, like all our cars come from Asia, all our computers are assembled in Asia. They might have the branding from the West, but most of them are uh, manufactured in Asia. So we need to, at least because of we are not having those industrial parks and stuff like that, we need at least to bring them at a low cost from their equipment. Then we need to focus on authentic education, and then we need to really speed up our education. I believe those are the main resources we need to be focused on, because if we're buying our equipment all the way from the West, the Europe and America, it's coming from China, then it's like adding value and value, and that's gonna make it expensive. So we need to be focused on what we're getting and who we're getting from. I believe that's how we can minimize our cost and like maximize our return on investment.
Yeah, Mickey, sorry to cut you off, but like we've talked in previous session and previous segment of this show, where the daunting nature of what we're dealing with, right? The daunting nature of what we need to accomplish is so huge. And earlier, as I was having a conversation with BJ, I was sharing some of the data that signals aspect of the daunting nature of it. When you have 57.5% of secondary school going students are not going to school in sub-Saharan Africa, that's a huge number, right? That's millions and millions of kids that should be attending, and then they are not attending for all sort of reasons. But one of the reasons that we know is because African countries that have adopted Western-style education system that depends on heavy resources, on heavy investments, on heavy capital investments, are struggling to mobilize the necessary resources, economic resources, to be able to finance those education that needs to be laid out. So what are the shortcuts? And I think Neo has been making points that is almost in my agreement with my point of view, like that I've been saying for many times, for many years, that we need to really be innovative in the way we think about what education should be. That's the philosophy, concept of education, but also in the way we operationalize education in order to fill that gap that we have in there. That gap that we have in there is there because the system we have adopted requires so much resource, we can't cover everybody. We can't build secondary education that meets the standard sufficiently to the standard we have embraced. Hence, there's a child who's a secondary school going child that cannot go there. It's not because for the most part, those people don't want to go to secondary school. It's because it's not accessible. And it's not accessible because it's expensive to make it accessible. And so hence, the shortcuts that we have to think about this, this edu entertainment, these new innovative ways of educating the mass and quality without compromising the quality too much, but at the same time delivering on the promise of what good education could do. So Neo talks about no time to come up with the infrastructure, world is changing very fast. We need to improve, and I think, so that point. What do you say about that? I'm both for both of you, for BJ and for Mickey. I will let you guys, respond to that point I just made.
Well, I mean, we have to figure out ways to make it easier and simpler. But most of all, we have to find ways of, like I mentioned earlier, there's been 3 types of ways of learning. Well, there may be 10 types of ways of learning, but we just haven't discovered them. Some people learn better in a group environment. So the kids working together. I mean, you have to sort of break down what works for each child. I mean, it's probably not easy to make it a mass way of doing things, but it's something that probably can be incorporated because you want to reach maximum potential of each child. And the plus part about having the mobile phones and having access to the internet, it gives you a wealth of knowledge. But being a kid, you may not know what questions to ask. Because like I was with the family over the weekend, we watched the movie. I didn't pay attention to the title. But then I told somebody about it, and they're like, "Oh yeah, send it to me." So I sent the text back and said, "Well, we were watching." They're like, "Oh, I don't remember." But because I remembered the subject matter, I was able to go on the internet, search it down, and figure out, because I thought I knew one of the characters, but I was wrong. But I was able to find it in a matter of, like seconds. But that's because, how to navigate it. Some people do not know how to navigate, how to search for stuff just using this phone, So that's a skill within itself. But once you learn how to do it, it opens everything up to you. So, it's like you got to take advantage of everything that you have in front of you and use it to your advantage.
And I think to me, that is a completely reimagination of education, right? Sometimes education is navigating information, right?
Yes.
Sometimes education is extracting insight out of knowledge. It's not just knowledge, but insight out of it. So there's so much information out there, too much knowledge out there, but what is valuable to me? What is applicable to me, to my neighborhood, to my context, to my condition, right? So that essentially is what I call for is a miniaturization of education. Miniaturization in that, like into pure size kind of these things, and then that is guided by the nature and the character of the learner, and then the aspiration of the learner. So the child's condition. Yes, the learning styles as pedagogy and the pedagogy, we've categorized them into 3 or 4 or 5. But like you said, BJ, that changes as education changes, life changes, society changes. The nature of knowledge and information flow changes, and then that is also part of the challenge. So time to reimagine, revision education is what I wrote about almost 3 years ago. Actually, like a few days ago, 3 years ago, is where I talk about the changing nature of the world and how education should be reimagined completely, in a way that has never been imagined. So this is an article I wrote where I talk about really not in detail, but in substantively, what are the challenges that we face in the world today, and then we face ahead of us. I mean, BJ and Mickey would know this. AI and machine learning is fast taking over a lot of even the smart, intelligent jobs. The ones that you take 10, 12 years to master. We're not talking about cheap labor. In the old days when technology was coming, we always talk about, those at the lower scale of the skill ladder are always at the mercy of technology. But now, new type of technology that is coming up is putting those that take years to perfect, years to master, at the mercy of the chopping board. And
the scary thing about that is now they're coming up with robots that can move their arms like humans. So that's gonna. So then, would you need a factory worker anymore? Would you need someone working, in certain like labs anymore? Because now, instead of having a person sitting up there assembling these microchips, we have a robot that can do it at a greater rate and a greater speed. And so literally all you do is maintain the robot, but the robot is not designed to fall apart in a matter of months.
Mm-hmm.
It may take years. So you're literally waiting till that robot, crashes before you have anything to do. So there's going to be a huge elimination of a lot of positions. I mean, they already have robots as far as in surgeries and stuff like that. So it's expanding out, and people are not looking at it from that perspective.
I mean, let's say like 90% of legal work in the United States, it is transactional. 90. Transactional, right? It's transactional meaning paperwork. You're not in the courtroom filing paper. You are reviewing precedents, right? Millions and hundreds of pages of thousands of pages of precedents. You're analyzing, and you're coming up with case analysis and blah blah blah. That's 90%. That could be easily more automated. That can easily automate. So how many lawyers that are like up and coming looking to would be needed to actually do the job? Like bail hearing, they are experimenting. There's I think it was a Yale experiment where they are experimenting to conduct bail hearing using AI. So
yeah. I mean, you can see it now because of the pandemic. The courthouses were closed, so now everybody's doing things by Zoom and virtual. So yes. that's already putting the avenue for this to go into effect at a quicker rate than expected.
Yes. So the danger that we have. So I talk about the danger of the advancement of. It's the nature of capitalism is that it's always going to look for efficiency. That's the nature of capitalism. You can't. It's not capitalism. It's not. If it's not like doggedly pursuing efficiency, right? Efficiency, people don't understand what efficiency means in the economy, in the capitalism. But efficiency in capitalist terms, as an economist, I can tell you that employing less for more. That's what it means. Employ less of resources for more outputs. The more, so that means if one employee can do 2 person's job, that's efficiency. It used to be 2 people, now it's 1 person. Now the next is half a person. So if in pursuit of efficiency, you realize at some point it's inefficient to hire a human being where they only work for you for maximum of 8 to 10 hours. Maybe if they are desperate, maybe for 15 to 18 hours. But you can optimize that to 24 hours. If you can substitute an 18 hours employee by 24-hour employee, which one will you choose for? The capitalist will always choose that 24 hours employee. And that 24-hour employee is not a human being eventually. It's a machine. From call centers to factories to assembly lines to even sometimes it's automated bots that are reading through materials, synthesizing new ideas, new information. And that's the thing that people sometimes don't get and don't understand how important. So I make the case in my document in my article that we need to begin to think about what is the thing that human beings are good at that cannot be automated. Human beings are good at being human beings, and if you can automate that, if we can if we can support that, like humanizing education, that means like creativity, imagination, emotions, feels, like sensibility, the curation of life, caring for environment, caring for elderly, those things that require a unique human capability that you cannot figure out a way to automate. So from that sense of perspective, that's what I argue for. But I'm looking at it from an extreme point of view. I'm not looking at it from a middle ground. I'm looking at it from an extreme ground. But that's what I try to point out. But the infrastructure part is so real, it's so serious. For an African context, the resource is not there. We need to be imaginative, reimagine the whole cell of education system so that we could reach as many people as possible, but while at the same time empowering them, not just liberating them, but also empowering them so that they can go out there, improve their farms, or their food security, improve their health, improve their well-being and their emotional, intellectual, spiritual well-being. Those are important things that are like at the heart of the challenges in Africa. Africans feeling confident and having self-belief and self-confidence, that is a challenge.
So I have a question. What AI that's been developed or created has created an invention?
Okay.
Because they always talk about how, all this information and they could do all these things with the computers and all, but have they been able to create something? They imply it, but I'm trying to think, has one of these things developed or created something?
Oh yeah. The answer is yes. They've created all these things. Like
No. I mean, if I'm a computer generated, and now have the all the knowledge, all this information stored into my database, have I now become human in the sense that now I'm able to analyze something and imagine something different?
No,
other than myself.
The imagine so the artificial intelligence, the lack of it is that mimicking human neurology is very difficult. At the moment, they can't mimic human neurology. That's the advantage that we have right now.
So therefore, you're gonna always need people, because if a doctor is not in there to do the surgery.
No. They can specific things they can. So they can train an AI to focus on, like, say, a specific type of heart surgery, or removing your appendix. They can train it.
But even with that, if they don't create, if the doctors are not, if they push this the way they keep promoting it, we don't need these, like you were saying, the in the legal system, they're now trying to, if you don't have a person who's doing this all the time, who sees the discrepancies, the differences of analyzing and see, okay, there's a better way of doing this because of my experience that I've gained.
Yes.
Then I can develop something new from this, and there's another path we can go on. But if a machine cannot think like that, yes, you would have the greatest instruments on the planet. They could do all this. They have all the knowledge of every inch on this planet. But you will never progress, because if that machine cannot be a man,
the artificial intelligence,
he's not going to be able to create something out of nothing.
So BJ, so the artificial element in the machine learning.
Yeah, like
Vicky, go ahead, please. Go ahead.
One part of the thing that can be implemented by the AI is it can't learn from its mistakes because it's technically coded. For example, like you give a heart surgery, it's like counts all the blood vessels and stuff like that. Like doctors, if they're doing surgery, they take caution a lot of things, but their hands might shake because it's a human nature. But if the artificial intelligence or a robot did, it's not going to shake his hands. But on the mind, he's already coded to do something. But if the doctor notices something while he's operating, he might shift, like you said. But the AI won't do that. So he needs the doctor to make that adjustment on his forearm, for example, if it's a robot. Yes. But if the doctor knows how to operate the AI, he's gonna do it perfectly without shaking, because shaking is one of the human natures and stuff like that. I think you get my point, right?
Oh yeah. So but nothing is, if now the doctor is no longer there because the AI have taken over, then what happens? Everything just becomes stagnant.
So BJ,
efficient but stagnant.
What they have right now in terms of technology is like the collaboration between doctor. Like, for example, an AI can read millions of images of a brain scan, right? Millions of images, and be able to see discrepancies, right? So can quickly get to the diagnosis quickly, right? But in terms of the treatment that is required to resolve whatever has been diagnosed, they can't. So it requires. So what they do right now is a collab. So their aspect of AI has to be very focused. It cannot be like human beings can do. Like a doctor that is that's treating you could also be a father or a mother, right? Could also be a spiritual person. Could also be a business person. Could also be multiple things at the same time. As that doctor is operating on you, multiple, like that person represents more than just a specific activity they're doing. But the AI you train, can train and learn that very specific things, but they cannot be that doctor, that human sense, that connection with the human. So they struggle with that because it's such a difficult thing to mimic. So the advantage that we have as human beings is that our neurons are much more advanced than any machine can develop. We know, I mean, as we understand, they are our neurons are composed of billions, hundreds of billions of neurons, making trillions of connections between them. And that connection are constantly, continuously rewiring. So they are continuously learning. Even at the old age, you're still learning. Your brain neurons, even at a very diminished state, no computer can completely, fully mimic that level of complexity and sophistication that the human neurons could represent. And that, to me, is what I'm trying to say. Education should be about that. That we represent a much larger, much more powerful essence and being than the things that we train to do a specific part of the things that we do. So, like, if a job that was menial and if my job as a law clerk was to go through, tedious amount of data and content to come up with some silly conclusion for my boss, instead of pursuing that, then the education will be about how do I make that person the best judge that can educate all that could go through the red tape, be able to understand and recognize all the fallacies of the social fallacies, historical injustices, and then they can focus on being a proper and true human beings. And one of the things that we struggle in the world is the inhumanity in us. The oppressor is inhuman, the oppressed is inhuman. So because we don't have the sense that we share humanity. They live in their own bubble. People live in their own bubble of wealth and well-being, or people live in their own bubble of poverty and lack of knowledge and ignorance. And whatever it is, we are struggling because we are not fully embracing our true potential as human beings. We are functionary. So I'm a day laborer. So I pretend to be nothing more than a day laborer. I'm a doctor. I pretend to be nothing more than a doctor. And that usually is the problem that education system has. Whether you are the so-called good scale of it or the bad scale, the bad end of the scale of it, you're struggling because you're not fully embracing your true humanity. Hence, you struggle to fully exercise your true potential, and then you become a minion, a tool, an instrument, and that is, to me, is the problem that I think eventually we have to resolve this, and we will be forced to resolve this because the system is going in that direction. The manufacturing sectors are becoming almost overly automated now. So cheap labor, low labor is almost no guarantee out of poverty. China went out of poverty, and a huge population of China was taken out of poverty because they had cheap labor. But in the next 10, 20, 30 years, other part of the world that have cheap labor, they might also be able to use that as a tool or instrument of eradicating poverty. So you might have to think of other means of doing it. Because the way things are done, they change all the time. Capitalism changes all the time. Yeah.
You brought up a good point. I just wanted to say it's all about, because if we understand that we're more than, we can function on the basis more than an AI because of the qualities that we have, we need to put that together because That's the human sense of it. So if my brain neurons are billions and it can bring up trillions of ideas and flows and a lot of things, but if I'm alone, I can only be capable of managing my own life.
Yes.
I know I'm going to be influential, but I'm only going to be capable of only influencing my own life. So we need to put that in the environment, into the country, into the continent, even possible to the world. And first, I believe it starts with the belief that we can do that, and starts by everybody opening up their human sense of it, because that's how we're going to operate. Because I believe this is how the like master engineerings in the world happen. Because let's pick up the Lalibela churches. They were built by hand, six and like and stuff like that. But they were a collective. The pyramids and stuff like that. They didn't have that super tech. They might have the like a high level natural what's it called, like the minerals and like the stuff like the diamonds to cut them with, but it was a collective work. But now we're depending on the artificial intelligence, and that's taking like the energy out of us, because we have that source inside of us that can build anything, that can create anything. And we need to put that, because we're trapped in this economic sense. We're all focused about like our daily life, our functioning year to year life, and so on. That puts us in a comfort zone to not like be stable, because I'm comfortable with my life. I have a good earning. I can live a good life. I have my own education level. Then I'm just comfortable. But if I go out and try to share my education and the way I reached here and stuff like that, I'm gonna be sacrificing my time of earning those things by getting a job at somewhere and earning a salary, and rather trying to educate an unfortunate, uneducated person to master his own life, and let's work together on a stable mode. I believe that comes through the changing our like way of life system, because the capitalist system, it's good. Like being great for all of us is good, but we're not at that stage. We need like a more of a socialist and like a communist mode, I believe, like merged together at this time, because as an African especially, if we merge those like socialist, especially socialist philosophies, because our cultures and everything are more concerned to that, and more of humanity is found to that essence. If we focus on that, then we can move on to the next stage and develop the capitalism stage, and so on and so on. I just wanted to say that. I'm about
You know something, Mickey?
to point out something. Yeah. So, like, give me something to feedback on that, because I'm about to leave.
Thank you, Mickey. I really appreciate you. You know, you're always insightful, very thoughtful. And then the thing about it is like the practicality of it's what we struggle with, and you point us in the right direction when it comes to that. And I think that people don't recognize like the true measure of what is trapped in us, the true measure of what is possible in human beings. I mean, as we having these incredible discussions about the possibility and the veracity of the quality and the nature of what we should have in our society, what we should do, what should we create, build. Our brain, our neurons are also managing the blood flow, the sugar levels, the heartbeat, the lung functions. I mean, they are like 80% of the things I'm not aware of that's conducted. In addition to providing all sort of like analysis to what I'm seeing and what I'm feeling, what I'm understanding. In addition to that, my brain is also processing what should I say next? How should I synthesize and organize my thoughts? How should I make sense? How do I rationalize and reason? and deliberate on different element of the argument, the different. This is what human beings represent in a spiritual and a material sense. One of the greatest, creations that you can think of in the universe. Like the way the human construct is, those who closely pay attention to it, understand it, it really, really boggles the mind that we are poor. It boggles the mind that we are hungry. It boggles the mind that we go to war with each other. It boggles the mind that we don't recognize possibilities, opportunities. One of my favorite author out there, he says the difference between, Paulo Freire, he says the difference between, like human beings and other beings is that we are creatures of history. And then he explains what it means by creatures of history. We don't only recognize history, we don't only go through history, we create history. That something that wasn't there then become there. I mean, like the endowments that we have been given by God on this planet, for those of us who believe, the endowment is not only to express the essence of our connection with God in the sense of spiritual sense. In the material sense, we can actually actualize and then bring that to life. And then we have the instrument. And I always tell people, our mind and our neurons are the conduits through which we can process that power and then be able to deliver. For the most part, humanity has used that power in so narrow and so limited version. Be it the Roman, the Chinese, or the Persian, the Aksumites, or the American Empire, or the British Empire, you name it after. They've always very miniaturized and very focused. They're like, oh, this group of people have to be enslaved for us to be wealthy. And then they did enslave. And then they thought they became wealthy. But now they have to pay the price for that cost. And all sort of mayhems and distractions, all sort of costs that is being incurred in those societies. From environmental to societal to intellectual degradation that they are dealing with here in the West, out here in the West. And then you go to Africa, you get the sense, okay, my tribe is better than the other tribe. And then what do you get? You get a killing of the other tribe, and after that, the killing of your own tribe. So humanity just fulfilling, the lowest common denominator that it represents is what it has been so far. And thank you, Mickey. I appreciate you for that. I think like what we need to do right now is like really liberate that possibility. That possibility that each and every one of us that need, and the power of education is that. So as we wrap up, BJ, do you have any? I really appreciate. I'm so thankful. I'm so grateful to you and to Mickey and to our dear lady who just showed up in the middle, who was not quite happy with her presence, and for all sort of reasons. But we really appreciate her presence in our midst as well. So BJ, if you have the last points to make before I let you go, I'll let you come and step in.
Well, it's critical that we don't hold our children back. I mean, a lot of times when you're in the education system, it could be just one small word said to a child, and it could just, hold them back, and they won't even try. So it's important to feed their curiosity, let them explore, let them think that, whatever is conceivable, and let their little minds just keep working. Because once you start that flame, that spark, it will turn into a flame.
Yes.
And they need to be able to analyze and put together. And their brains, when they're children, you see them doing that every day.
Yeah.
It's when they start coming into these systems that says, no, you're not supposed to do this. No, that's not the right thing. No, you must behave this way. No, you must look this way. And it's just a process of elimination. And by the time the kid gets in high school, either they're not being, taught in a manner that they are able to learn that works for them, or they're just okay, I'm just here to get this paper and then I'll start my life once it's all over. But school should be the spark that opens them up to what, their minds and he had said earlier how, when they were doing the pyramids, it was a group effort.
Mm-hmm.
We don't do that anymore. Everything is individualized.
Yes.
And we need to be able to learn from each other.
I think that, so I call it, there's, each and every one of us have an agency, right? Right? But there's also a community agency, the collective agency that we tend to forget. Because there's a limit to my agency, and then beyond that limit, there's somebody else's agency. There's a culmination, bringing of those agencies together that create, thriving communities that are able to make history that lasts ages. The communities that have profoundly affected this thing. Somebody was saying that I was talking to somebody saying, like, the American experiment is a result of the regrets of the Roman experiment. I don't know to what extent that makes sense to you, but it's like, a bunch of Europeans who did, who bungled the opportunity of creating an empire like a Roman Empire. And so the American experiment is trying to revive the failed empire. Like we made this mistake in those moments. Now we cannot make that mistake now. But it looks like almost...
Okay, I can see that, what it's saying. Make them think that they're free, but they really aren't.
Yes. So that experiment, the Roman experiment was like, it was a republic and then it became an empire, and it became a dictatorship, right? And then let's come up with rules to make sure we don't fall into this demagogue. But ultimately, who's running the system? They are demagogues. They're not one emperor, but there are multiple emperors of different corners coming together, running the system, but preventing the true and full optimization, like the dreamy nature of what Rome's were, but they dreamt about this stuff, but ultimately the dream was a nightmare. Now it's the same thing, I wanted to point out that, and I think it's important that ignorance is not a place. It's not a place of refuge. People cannot find refuge in their ignorance, of themselves and the ignorance of others. That is an important point to make. That any kind of existence and coexistence among ourselves cannot be achieved in the absence of education that informs, education that liberates, and education that empowers. And that, we cannot excuse ourselves of our responsibility as human beings because we are not informed or we're not educated. We are unaware. We can't say, oh, I'm unaware because the system doesn't want me to be aware anymore. I'm uneducated because the system is not allowing me to be educated. So those excuses are no longer valid excuses for the kind of crisis of humanity that we are faced with right now in the world. The crisis that we've been dealing with for many, many centuries now. And I think we can no longer say, we can no longer say that the enslavement of our people is because we don't lack the knowledge, because the system is trapping us. It's not enough to say that. We know, BJ, I know.
Yeah.
That exists, right? So we have to do something about it.
To break through it.
To break through it. So that the notion that the powers that be occupied so much of the space, there is no place for me to breathe and to act and to mobilize myself to act in a manner that guarantees my own liberation and my own empowerment. that notion is a very false sense of notion, a false truth. There's that presence exists, but as much as that power exists, my power to resist and to chart a path, in a space where this power doesn't occupy, nobody, and I have that power. Why? So I'm not going to blame entirely for my own slavery, for my own oppression on the oppressor alone. I have to also take responsibility for that. So, and it's about time Africans start saying that, yes, we are made to be ignorant, but we will inform ourselves. We're made to abandon our values, but we will reclaim our values. We're made to feel like we are less than human, but we will reconquer our humanity. And those things are not out of realm of possibilities. And I think I wanted to end with that, and then I will let you, because I made points sometimes, you might not necessarily agree with, or you might have a different perspective. I'll let you say a word or two to that, and then we'll wrap up.
You have to write your own stories, and you have to write yourself in every part. If you let someone else write the story for you, you think they're going to give you the leading role? That's not going to happen. Go to your history so you can begin to know who you are. Because colonization, you're talking about 2,000 years. 2,000 years of you being taken away from who you really are. Mm-hmm. And then now, because there's a total disconnect, they could say, well, y'all did was sit in trees and didn't do anything while we just came in with our buckets taking the gold because y'all wasn't using it for nothing. But if you look in the history, you see that people died and fought to try to stop it. Mm-hmm. And then that may make you understand that you are more than what this other person is defining you to be.
Yes.
Don't let anybody write you in as a character in their own story. Create your own.
Absolutely. Amen to that. Amen to that. I really appreciate that. BJ, you've been an awesome and incredible partner today. I would say I co-hosted with you.
No. I'm just the one who got a big mouth.
No, but like,
and sometimes I might throw a gem out every once in a while.
No, but you helped me. You present the best version of myself. You really push me intellectually.
You're the one who has the knowledge, and you're the one that's teaching all of us.
But no. I'm learning from you so much, and it's like that has to. No, it's not. It's not a compliment shopping here. That kind of thing. Really, truly, I believe that this show was many times better because you were present and because other people were present, both in the comment section, also in the audience, and in the conversation here in the platform. It is a testament of the power of humanity when we come together.
Yeah, because again, we got to break from, we're all suffering. We all have gone through so much pain just to exist in this mad world. Yes. There was a movie back in the day with that name. And we have to break those chains because we're not even the people we're supposed to be, because we're holding so much baggage that's not even ours.
Exactly.
And we have to find a way to heal from all the pain and the suffering, because it will, stifle you. You won't be able to move. You won't be able to function because you're dealing with and the people who are succeeding, they're not concerned with their struggles.
No.
They're concerned with getting that cobalt out of the middle of the Congo. That's my only concern.
It's not in the interest of the oppressor to liberate the oppressed.
Yeah.
It's not in the interest. It doesn't come to. In fact, it is in the interest of the oppressor, the oppressed, not just only to liberate himself, but also to liberate the oppressor. But the oppressor cannot see its oppression, because it's sitting up there in the top of the mountain, sipping their Kool-Aid of exploitation. But to me, like, you know, you need to drop those bags, right? We need to drop the bags, leave them behind. Drop them. And then start new bags. Bags that says I'm a human being. New bags.
And sometimes it just starts with a cup.
Yeah.
And you put your little coins in it and get another cup and put more coins in it and another cup and another cup and another cup.
Cumulatively it adds up and then it builds up. And before you know it, you've reached a point where you don't even recognize all that pain anymore.
No, because you've created your own.
Yes, you've created your own path, healing path. And then to me, like the way our body heals when you cut it off, even from a very traumatic things, our body is able to heal, right? Imagine our spirits and our emotions. So the tangible parts we know heals eventually, right? So if I go have a heart operations, it heals. You know, if I cut my finger somewhere, it heals. Like, yes, it's painful, but it heals. But we also know now our non-material and non-tangible part also heals. Spiritual element heals. Intellectual element heals. Emotional part heals. They heal. The instrument of healing is already resides in all of us. Not just in material sense, in all the way. But you need to pursue it. You need to pursue that healing. You need to go after it. Because healing is about the future. So like you are sick today, you are unwell today. Healing is about the future when you are healed from that pain, right? So
and even though it may leave a scar, it's still okay. You're still whole.
Yeah,
so you don't have to throw away the past.
Yeah, you still have to go into the future, past, right? You still have to be reminded of the past. That the scar is always about the reminder. I have this motorcycle accident when I was in my younger days of venturing and doing some work back when I was in Ethiopia. And remember, the scar is still there. Even though the accident wasn't that serious, the scar is still there. I remember in details, every time I see that scar, I remember the visual image of it. But I healed from it. So there's a healing. Healing is the future. And the scar is the reminder of the past. So we are human beings as creators of history, not only consumers of history, but creators of history. We can create a history of what will be history in the future. So when the future comes and we have healed, our healing will become, the process of healing will become history. Like we were in pain, and then we looked ahead into the future. We worked on our healing, and that healing worked. And we got to that future. After healing has completed, we look back at it and say, like, we did it. We healed. And so that's the thing. That's about the power of the power that resides in each and every one of us. And that has been planted in us by our creators. The most amazing element of being created, I believe, and some amount of faith I am, that I feel like I'm a part of that creation. I'm not only created, but I'm also part of creation. I get to create stuff. So today, as I'm speaking the words, as BJ was sharing her point of view, we have created something that didn't exist almost 3 hours ago. That's it. That's being an active participant of creation. And it's fascinating. It's an amazing element. So embrace your humanity, embrace your capability, and stand up for yourself, fight for yourself, fight for your fellow humanity.
And you have every right to win.
Yeah, and then
you have every right to win.
And then you will win. And you have every right to win, and then you will win. It's a winning strategy. If you pursue the journey that has been planted in you, inherently planted in you, there's nothing on this planet Earth, and anything that's created by any oppressor that can stand in the way of that. Nothing. So all sorts of things happen in the world. People get orphaned and become, innovators. They lose, what is dear to them, and they become creators, inventors, and artists, and shakers and movers. they go through trauma. And like famous Bob Marley. Bob Marley is one of my favorites. I mean, he went through some of the most traumatic things, including assassinations and attempts of killing, and I'm sure constant barrage and threatening. I mean, in the 1970s and the 1980s, and then he shifted the argument in the dialogue by empowering a whole generation of Africans and in the world to recognize themselves as better than just what your Buffalo Soldier story tells you, right? So, anyways, there's so much to pursue and to be free for, and go after it. And BJ has given you clear and simple directions. Follow that, doggedly without any failing, and you go somewhere. Huh?
And we just got to begin with one step, just one step forward.
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much, BJ. I have to end the show early today because I have other commitments in the next 10-15 minutes. So, but I will come back next week and we will expand more on this education discussions and many more topics to come. And BJ, as always, we always appreciate you. We love you here at the Swahili Nation Network. You are a sister, our companion, our friend, our family. So we really appreciate you. So thank you so much.
And I appreciate each and every one of you, and the knowledge that you're putting out there to try and open our eyes to what's really going on and how we can make a change.
Yes.
And that, God bless you all for that.
Yes. The same to you. God bless you too. Thank you, BJ. Okay. So we are wrapping up our show today and I wanted to thank you, BJ. I really appreciate BJ for that. And thank those people who came in. Nikki, I really appreciate you for coming in. Thank you, Romisha, even though it wasn't in good time, we appreciate you for coming in. Those people in the comments, Neo, I found out that you are somebody that I agree with more often than I usually find out. So thank you for that. I appreciate you. Today, there's nothing we can find in false sense of security from ignorance. Nothing. So let's abandon ignorance. Ignorance is there's nothing there. There's nothing you can plant, grow, or harvest from. And it's all about, it's not just about knowledge in the world right now. It's also about wisdom and insight. And that requires a very fine-tuned sense of self and a sense of humanity. And then the consistent coexistence cannot be devoid of education. We need to be educated. In order to coexist, we need to be educated about ourselves and our community and the wider world at large. And ultimately, we cannot excuse ourselves of being uninformed, uneducated, and unaware populace. We're not informed, we're not educated. That's not an excuse anymore. You are educated, you are aware, and you are informed. So we can do it better and can build a better world as a result of that. Thank you. And as I prayed at the beginning of it, I prayed for God to be present in our midst, in our conversations. And, I'm grateful, thankful for God's presence in our midst, in our conversations, and our ideas. And that I was, God will use me on every one of you as instruments and tools of the light, the freedom, the liberations, and the openings of our minds and our eyes to what is possible, what we are capable of, what we could do. And hopefully, 21st century education will be about your liberations and your empowerment. And much blessing to you, to everyone, and at the same time, I ask God's presence in all those who are suffering from ethnic rivalry, killing, and mayhem, and from all sort of operations in somewhere in factories in somewhere in the east and west and south and north, and any and all the species that are struggling to survive on this planet because of our actions or inactions of humanity. All of those things, I ask God to find respite and to give respite, to be present in their needs, and to provide them the guidance and the directions they need to be better off than they were going into where they are right now. So I appreciate you all, and with immense and deep gratitude to Almighty Creator. And I say adios, goodbye, until next time.